everyone, and welcome to another episode of Killer Academy, where we take the worst killers Dead by Daylight has to offer, and I show you how to best utilize them. So, Michael Myers was actually one of the first killers in the game, if you look at it. He came after Huntress did, and he was pretty good, but really, he's a basic killer, and most survivors will know how to outplay him really easily. So, we're going to be looking at why, but first, let's start with his perks. Dying Light makes it to where the Obsession has a bonus speed to unhooking and healing, but every time a survivor other than the Obsession is hooked, every survivor other than the Obsession gets a 2.5 penalty to repair, healing, and sabotaging, which is pretty good, and that increases with each stage. I only have it at green because I don't bother to level up a killer I'll never play. Play with your food. This one's very simple. Every time you let the Obsession escape, you get more speed. It's pretty simple, and that's fine. Save the best for last. I like this one. So, whenever you hit a basic attack on somebody not dealt to the Obsession, you get more speed on your attacks. So, it's really cool. So you can get up to a 40% deduction as long as you're not hitting the Obsession, which takes away two tokens. And if you kill the Obsession, you can't gain any tokens. So that's very simple, and let's look at his power. So his power is also decently simple. At level 1, you are completely undetectable, you have decreased movement speed, and you don't really have a lunge. At 2, you're just a standard killer. It's just that simple. At Evil Within 3, though, this is when it gets nice. All survivors suffer the exposed status, and it lasts for 60 seconds without the use of an add-on. Now, if you want to run add-ons, it's without a question that you're going to want to run into Tuft of Hair and Judith's Tombstone for a moment. We'll get in soon. As for the perk build I found most successful, I found a lot of success in Disordance, Iron Grasp, and Nope. They all work together in actually a lot of good ways, which makes it very interesting to use, although I gotta say, once again, you could just use Noad with any other killer and you'll achieve the same results. As for what add-ons I'd use, it's the ones mentioned earlier, and this is because you can get unlimited tier 3 with them, and you can instantly mori people, and that's something all of the clips at the beginning had in common. I was using that build. That build can do some serious damage, and not only that, but a little thing on the side is it also causes people to just give up when they realize they can't take a single hit. It's actually kind of insane how powerful it is, and it's one of the things that makes playing him really satisfying, just being able to one-shot people from out of the gate, essentially. Not only that, but if you're just stalking all the time, you kind of look like a friendly, so that's always pretty interesting to see how people think of you as a friendly just for you to one-shot them later on because they didn't realize you were just getting stock off of them when they're teabagging in front of you. And it's not exactly entirely your fault. I mean, they should know not to just teabag a Myers clearly stalking, but it's kind of funny to be completely honest. What strategies can we use to make Michael a better killer? Well, one of them is it's better for stalking in large groups of people for long periods of times at close range. Noticing you though, the better, as you'll keep getting more stalk the longer that they're just sitting still. Also, keep in mind that once you reach a max number of stalk on one person, you can't continue stalking them. It'll just not add to your meter, which is kind of a pain most of the time, but it's still playable. Another tip is to get the stalk to 99% like in this clip, so you can easily one-tap it to completely get the rest of it and one-shot people. So now we're going to talk about the 3 main types of Myers. The first of which, being the most common, is just regular. So regular Myers just is the normal playstyle. He stalks people, he gets his tier 3, he gets back to tier 2, and rinse and repeat. It's not the most fun thing because of how long it takes to get to tier 3, but it's still doable. The second type is Jump Scare Myers. This is where you don't leave tier 1, you remain undetectable the entirety of the game and just jump scare people and just frighten them whenever you come around a corner. This has the disadvantage of you being slower with basically no lunge, but you can fix that with some add-ons. And it's really fun to just scare people. It's like the adrenaline rush you get while playing Pig, which is really satisfying. So, the third, and the best one objectively, is One-Shot Myers. So that was the beginning clips. You use the 2 iridescent add-ons, and you will never run out of tier 3, and once you get to tier 3, you can automatically Mori somebody on hit. It's really effective, actually, and it makes it not as fun to play, but definitely more satisfying when it comes to the effectiveness of it. And honestly, the One-Shot Myers is more effective than a lot of the killers, even some of the best. I found more use out of One-Shot Myers than players like, or killers like Hillbilly, or even Blight, and they're considered to be some of the best, so there is a lot of viability with it, and it makes you a menace to the enemies. And like I said, they'll often just give up if they realize you're using that build, because they realize they don't stand a chance not being able to take a single hit. There is the thing that you do have to get your timing on your swings right, or else you'll just down them, which happens somewhat often, but it's more than fair because of the extreme power of this build. And on top of that, this build makes it to where you don't need to run a Mori, so it's very fun to use with something like the add-on, or the offering that makes it to where you don't lose any add-ons. It's pretty effective, actually, and I found myself using this multiple times because of just how common that add-on seems to be. You can make a lot of use of it because of the amount of times that you can use it, and I'd always recommend using the add-on over something like a Blood Points offering, because the add-on has the bonus advantage of letting you just rinse and repeat with the same strategy, which, while the extra Blood Points are more than nice, it's just fun to have this one-shot incredible capability all the time whenever you're playing Myers, because in general, he's a killer that's decently weak, so having this is a huge benefit. As for the synergy he has with the perks I told you about, Iron Maiden is good to stop people from doing locker jukes, which they will often try to do if they're facing a Myers, since they know that the Myers won't be able to hit them inside of a locker, and they can just jump in and out dodging swings. But Iron Maiden completely negates that. Also use Disordance because it is really helpful in general, and I think it's an extremely underrated perk. Being able to see whenever there's 2 people on a generator is really powerful, because you can just go across the map seeing them. Noed, it's kind of a given. Noed is just kind of... yeah, it's Noed, yeah. Needs to nerf this perk, devs, please. Iron Grasp is helpful because it gives you a little bit more time to get survivors on hooks if you're not using one-shot, and it gives you more time to... it gives you less wiggle effects, so I found it decently helpful, but it's kind of redundant if you're just running one-shot, since you won't be hooking people that often anyways. So, instead of that, you could run some other gen-busting perks is what I'd recommend, and instead of Noed in that situation, since you're basically impervious, I'd choose another gen-busting. If you can run just pure gen-busting, like, maybe go with Ruin, and you could also go with Fearmonger, you could do some good job as him, since whenever somebody sees a Myers stalking, they scatter. They go all across the place, and this is especially useful since if they do that, Ruin will take effect without you having to kick a generator. So it's really helpful in that regard. So what could we change about the killer to make him a little bit more playable and fun to use? I don't know, because this is a killer that you give him an inch and he'll take a mile. He's a really strong killer, and he's one of the few killers I consider to be both extremely noob friendly and not noob friendly in the slightest. It's really weird how that works, but it is true to quite a large extent. So, personally, I would recommend just a small change. I would say make it to where individual people can be stalked for longer, or the stalking timer decreases over time. So, if you stalk somebody at the beginning of the match, you can stalk them sooner or later than you can currently. This would be really helpful, and I'd find it being used a lot more often if this was the case, because as it stands now, it's kind of weird to realize that you're just not getting any stock. In fact, when I actually started playing Michael, I didn't even realize that I had a limited amount of stock on each person. So, yeah. It also doesn't say that in the description of the killer's ability, if you look into the ability, which I think if they're going to keep this, they should change. Because not knowing the power of your killer completely can be kind of annoying. But overall, I'd say that they can keep him just as is. He's a powerful killer when used in the right ways with the right add-ons, so I'd recommend keeping that in mind. But I've noticed that more than often, it's not worth what you're getting for stalking people, since often you're going to be stalking at close ranges, and one hit will do more than enough unless you're running the infinite stalk, in which it's always worth it to throw away a single hit. But until then, one-shot somebody from the beginning of the game, get angry messages in chat,